Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Well, Custer County health authorities moved swift and certain after a recent burst in confirmed COVID-19 cases. The Custer County Miles City Unified Command strongly recommends the county return to phase 1 of the governor's reopening plan. Now, that recommendation effective immediately and for the next 2 weeks. Officials say all local businesses, athletics, community events, and assemblies return to phase 1. That recommendation is to go back to no more than 10 people at public gatherings and avoid non-essential travel. Custer County reported 3 positive cases on Monday and 6 on Wednesday. The health officer says a total of 19 cases puts Custer on par per capita with bigger counties.
They've had these positives trickle in over the matter of months. We've had all of our positives in the last 2 weeks. We don't have the public health resources. We don't have the healthcare resources that a lot of these larger jurisdictions do. What we're going to do is watch and see what happens over those next 2 weeks and change, again, some of our tactics, again, to really focus on workers and people who are at very high risk, keeping them shielded from this outbreak at that point.
Now, to support public health nurses, the Montana National Guard will be in Custer County tomorrow, June 19th, and Saturday, June 20th, to help run a free drive-through testing event at the Eastern Montana Fairgrounds. Well, state health authorities are catching up with Montana counties on the latest confirmed cases. Today, the state reporting its largest single-day jump since March. Take a look. The state now reports 25 new confirmed cases. As MTN reported yesterday, 4 of those cases are in Bighorn County for children under the age of 10. 4 more in Flathead, Gallatin, and another 3 in Yellowstone counties are reported. Fergus County announces its first 2 cases, and Valley County along the High Line reports its first positive. And an update on COVID cases in the Cowboy State. Wyoming reports 906 confirmed cases. The death toll remains at 18, with 674 recovered. Well, some Montana healthcare providers are encouraging Governor Steve Bullock to continue efforts to expand Medicaid coverage here in Montana. They say it's critical for patients dealing with this pandemic. They also say even without the COVID crisis, the coverage is an important way to help people improve their quality of life. MTN's Dennis Bragg reports.
During a roundtable discussion Thursday at Missoula's Partnership Health Center, Governor Bullock noted how the legislature's decision to expand Medicaid couldn't have been timed better, giving Montanans a lifeline for the pandemic.
Medicaid expansion will cover the costs of COVID-19 related treatments, as well as continue to pay for routine medical care. Low-income adults in states that didn't expand Medicaid wouldn't be eligible for that Medicaid coverage.
Just as importantly, Bullock says the expansion has given Montana's rural hospitals an important financial foothold at a time when many small hospitals across the country are closing. But those participating in the discussion noted that the expanded coverage is allowing health centers to make a dramatic difference in people's lives. CEO Lori Francis explained the percentage of patients with no insurance has dropped from 50% to 12% since the latest expansion. That's allowing the clinic to help people address other social changes like housing and underemployment that have a direct impact on public health and Montana's economy.
There's a huge stumbling blocks in our society that are not the fault of the individual. And it's a failure of the system, not of the individual. And we need to have things like Medicaid as a safety net to help them.
Quirk told the governor of the painful experience of trying to help a rancher navigate through a health crisis while in fear of losing his livelihood. Missoula small business owner Amy Casso told the emotional story of the fear and uncertainty of dealing with a breast cancer diagnosis while self-employed. Circumstances tough enough already, but doubly difficult during a pandemic.
It becomes that much more essential. I mean, no one should be making a decision whether to forego preventative care or making sure that the only place that they get care is an emergency room because they're trying to choose between literally keeping, a roof over their head or addressing their health care needs.
In Missoula, Dennis Bragg, MTN News.
Governor Bullock says the state is still waiting for a word from the federal government on the latest round of Medicaid waivers, but says Montana will be able to continue operating under the most recent state legislation. Well, a Billings woman arrested last week after a stabbing death near Terry Park is now charged with murder. Prosecutors have filed a deliberate homicide charge against 38-year-old Charlotte Rodarte in what's described as a meth deal gone bad. Charging documents state the suspect repeatedly stabbed 36-year-old Leon Gustafson in the chest in her home at 612 Terry Avenue on June 12th. Gustafson was later found dead in front of the home. Charlotte Rodarte and her brother Dustin Rodarte were arrested that night in Lockwood, the suspect with blood on her hands. Dustin Rodarte, who's been released from jail, told police his sister stabbed Gustafson multiple times while calling him a snitch. Charlotte Rodarte is set to make her first court appearance tomorrow. And 2 women from Philadelphia have been sentenced for being off trail and inside a thermal area at Yellowstone National Park. On June 11th, 31-year-old Tara Duvally and 30-year-old Sarah Piotrowski were seen leaving the boardwalk and walking in a thermal area in the Midway Geyser Basin. Park officials say they damaged fragile environment in that area. The women were sentenced to 2 days in jail, fined $350, and ordered to pay restitution. They've also been banned from Yellowstone National Park for 2 years. Well, tomorrow, communities all across the nation will celebrate Juneteenth, Friday, June 19th. It marks the end of slavery in our country. Here in Billings, celebrations are scheduled to take place at South Park on Saturday. Q2's Mitch Laggy brings us a look ahead of that celebration.
On June 19, 1865, Union Major General Gordon Granger landed in Galveston, Texas, bringing news that the Civil War was over and President Abraham Lincoln had signed the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing slaves in the Confederate States. Juneteenth, a combination of the words June and 19th, is the holiday that emerged from this historic event. State Senator Margie McDonald was behind legislation in 2017 that officially recognized Juneteenth in the state government.
It's interesting as a holiday because it kind of bubbled up from the community as opposed to coming from on high or, Washington, D.C. It's really, for 150 years, it's been celebrated. And in some states, especially in the South, it is huge. But we in Montana, we're not so aware of it. We're learning.
In Billings, Juneteenth has been celebrated for over a decade. This year's celebrations were organized with the help of the Black Heritage Foundation of Yellowstone County. Pastor Tracy J. Starr is a member of the organization. He sees the holiday as an opportunity for Black Americans to celebrate their history.
Well, if I don't talk about my past, how do I embrace my now? How do I embrace who I am as a Black man if I'm told to let my history go? Juneteenth has allowed me to embrace that.
Juneteenth comes this year about a month after the death of George Floyd, sparking protests against police brutality across the country. Starr said the Juneteenth event in Billings is an opportunity for all to learn about Black Americans' experiences.
Until we get to the point where we're willing to share our history and everybody that's on the receiving end is ready to listen to everybody's history and accept the fact that these things did happen. We cannot ignore that they happen. It's about what can we do so these things don't continue to happen.
In Billings, Mitch Laggy, MTN News.
All right, thanks so much, Mitch. Now, here's a quick look at the details for Saturday. Juneteenth kicks off at South Park starting at 1 p.m. and wraps up at 5. A selection of speakers will address the crowd starting at 3 o'clock. Everyone attending is encouraged to wear a mask and practice social distancing. And the usual potluck barbecue will be replaced with a grab-and-go style meal. Well, it's almost like a bad movie. Moths have made their return for the summer season, and it sure feels and looks like there's more of them. And Yellowstone County Horticultural Assistant Amy Grandprix says there are more. Grandprix says blame the rain because there's more moisture in the air this season. She says the moths start their lives as army cutworms. The cutworms are currently hatching due to the warmer climate and will soon migrate to the Rocky Mountains. But they're coming back. The insects return in late August to lay up to as many as 3,000 eggs per female cutworm. And they're joined at that time by the pale western cutworm, which appears only in late August. As the moths make shelter in our homes, garages, and patio areas, people may be happy to know that there's an easy trick to get rid of them.
One of the things that's a really quick cleanup is if you can make a nice basin, whether that be a dish pan or 5-gallon bucket full of frothy water. So, get some water in there, put in a few good squirts of some dishwashing soap, froth up the foam, and then put a high wattage bulb with the lampshade off over that, about 3 or 4 inches above that. And as they hit that, they'll end up in the suds and that drowns them. So real nice way to kind of clean it up.
And Grandprix tells us, if interested, the Yellowstone Extension Office has a bulletin that further explains the life cycles of both the cutworm species that we are and will be seeing this summer. For more information, you can head to KTVQ.com. Well, ahead on tonight's 5:30 news, we're on the fast track with a record-breaking time on a treadmill thanks to a Bozeman football player. And we talk more with Mustangs manager Gary Roller as he recalls his favorite moments during his 16-year career and his childhood in Billings.
And coming up in weather, we had a few more showers again today. How much did we get, and when is this stuff going to quit? We'll have the answer to both questions coming up in a few more minutes.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green. This is the 5:30 news on Q2, Montana's news leader.